Hello everyone, my name is John Suho. People call me John Suho. Today we'll be going over the roadmap of recent upcoming and planned security features for InterSystems Iris. Disclaimer, please note that any dates or future versions mentioned herein are projections and not set in stone, subject to change. We'll talk about the Iris Security Database and Security Wallet. If you were just here, that'll sound familiar. We'll touch base on database encryption enhancements and enhancements for key management. We'll also discuss work on granular resources, enhancements to OpenID Connect /OAuth 2, and we'll ask for your feedback on other things, features generally. But first, I'm going to talk about trees. Now, trees, of course, obviously have branches and roots. And both of those have subsequent branches and roots that grow out of what preceded them. And branches and roots both allow for life-giving energy and nutrients to strengthen the tree as a whole. Now, trees famously have also host birds in them. Birds are not part of the tree, but they do enhance it and make it better. And furthermore, they also have fungal networks that sit between them that allow them to communicate with each other better. Our branches, our roots, our birds, and our fungus. All right, we're here today to talk about features on the security roadmap. Like branches, many features like the Iris Security Database and Secure Wallet are already out, but new features and enhancements will build on and strengthen what we've already released, as will others, like enhancements to database encryption and encryption key management. Like roots, granular resources will create splits to make security tighter, and we want to make sure you're aware of them so you don't trip over them. Like birds and nests, OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect enhancements make it easier to integrate with things that aren't technically part of the instance, but which will strengthen it. Like fungal networks, improvements to connection security and TLS will better provide communication between systems. With that, let's get started. The first set of branches we'll look at is the Iris Security Database, introduced in InterSystems Iris 2025.2. Prior to this, security configuration information was stored in IrisSys, but moving it into the new Iris Security Database allowed that information to be stored in a dedicated database that could be protected with encryption, so encrypt that to your heart's content. In coming months, we'll introduce mirroring support for the Iris Security Database, which will grow out of and extend the capabilities of the initial Iris Security Database feature, enabling you to make security configuration changes like editing resources, roles, users, etc., on a mirror primary, then having those changes propagate to the mirror backup, DR async, or read-only reporting async, and have them show up there. No more need to create the user in multiple places or export and import between systems. Next year, we expect a new feature to branch out, Iris Security with ECP, which enable you to share an Iris Security database between InterSystems and Iris instances over ECP. And if you edit your security settings on any of your application or database instances, it should change for the others. With the introduction of a separate database for security settings that can be encrypted, we were able to introduce the Secure Wallet in InterSystems Iris 25.3, so that's more growth that we got out of that branch. The Secure Wallet allows for privileged administrators to create secrets, for instance, key value pairs, where you can specify usernames and passwords, give access to those secrets to users without giving them direct access to see the secrets themselves. For example, specifying the credentials for an HTTP request. We're also going to be expanding the capabilities of Security Wallet so that in addition to storing its own secrets, it'll be able to integrate with secrets managers like HashiCorp, and we want to hear from you about which other vendors or technologies in particular you'd be interested in us supporting. AWS Secrets Manager, Azure Key Vault, hardware security module-based secret, let us know. If you missed the presentation on the Secure Wallet and Secure Database that Sean Klingensmith gave earlier today, please check it out when the recording comes out. Another one of our major branches has to do with database encryption. Now, database encryption has been in InterSystems Iris since the beginning, but some new and important enhancements will make it even better. The first of these, storage-friendly encryption. Let's explore the problem it solves. Say you have some storage and some data on that storage. Because storage has gotten so smart about compression, the storage doesn't necessarily get that big. But let's say your data gets encrypted and randomized, making all the compression we had before encryption unusable. So your storage, and therefore your storage costs jump up. Then let's say we make some tweaks and the encryption and randomization happens in a way that only minimally affects the compression. So your storage doesn't get nearly as high. In 2026.1, we shipped some code to enable storage-friendly encryption. It's still marked as experimental, but we wanted to include it in the product even before it was generally supported to give customers a chance to try it out and get used to it. And there's a good chance it'll be moved to general support in the near future with few or perhaps no additional changes. Stay tuned for that. Our second big database enhancement is online database encryption, which should come out in 2027. At the moment, if you want to encrypt a database, it needs to be made inaccessible until the encryption process is complete. If the encryption process is interrupted, that copy of the database is stuck in an unusable state, so you have to start all over again with a backup. And if you want to switch encryption keys from the database, you need to decrypt the whole thing, then re-encrypt it with a new key. That's 2 encryptions. Next year, we'll introduce online database encryption. This will allow you to start an encryption process for a database while still being able to read and write from that database. It'll also handle pausing or resuming encryption and recovering to be able to continue encryption after a system crash or shutdown. You'll also be able to re-encrypt a database with a new key without having to decrypt it first. You'll also be able to throttle the encryption rate to control how much extra load you'd like to put on the system and how fast you want the encryption to go, whether that's a full bore fast as possible or a gentle, slow, and steady. We had a session earlier today talking about encryption needs more generally. If you missed it, be sure to check that out once the recording comes out. It also covered things like key management for database encryption. So we have 3 different ways to store encryption keys for database encryption: in a local credentials key file, in a KMS encrypted key file, which itself needs to be decrypted by a cloud KMS in order to get the data key, or in a KMIP server, which holds the key and only dispenses it when the instance connects and authenticates to it. KMS and KMIP have some benefits over local credentials files, and we wanted to make it easier to migrate from local credentials files to the other kinds, if desired. So within the next year, we'll introduce the ability to move a key from a local credentials key file to either a KMS encrypted key file or a KMIP server. We'll also support configuring multiple unattended key sources, so you'll be able to start up with both sources while you're doing the migrating. This will be very helpful once we have online encryption released. Okay, let's talk about our efforts to split security resources. To differentiate this slightly from the branches we were talking about earlier, I'll characterize them as roots. They're slightly less visible than things like new encryption features, but just as important. These keep our trees or your system security better anchored. Let's say before you had a couple of these big roots, but we instead want to split those into many smaller ones that'll grip the ground better and absorb more nutrients. For a long time, we've had some big security resources that have covered a lot of things, but we want to split those into smaller resources that are more granular. We've started with the % development resource, and the changes are due to be released later this year. Previously, we only had 1% development resource that protected many different parts of the product. Now we're introducing 6 new % development resources that will each control slightly different areas within the product. % development export will control the ability to export code from out of the instance. % development code modify will control the ability to load and compile code. % development shell will control terminal access. % development debug will control debugging access. % development IDE will control development environment access. And % development SQL will control developer level SQL access. Some notes on compatibility. On upgrade, any role with % development will automatically get the new 6 granular resources. So existing roles should have the same level of access as before, but now you'll be able to remove or add the new resources to roles as desired to tailor access to your needs. Just in case you've been using it for custom checks, we aren't removing the original %development resource when the new ones are released, but we will do so in a future version. We encourage you to take any custom checks you have against system resources and switch those to checking your own custom resources. Some of these routes are above ground, so we want to make sure you're aware of them so you don't trip over them, which is to say there is a behavior change with some of these new resources. Previously, even with regular old %development resource, we didn't do explicit permissions checks when exporting or importing/compiling code. But now these operations will require that a user be granted specifically %development export or %development code modify respectively. There were other ways you had to get to a place where you were in a position to compile in the first place, but we didn't check these explicitly, and now we are. Hopefully any users that were doing this before were ones that were expected to have development access, but now that's being specifically checked, so be sure that your users who you want this privilege are granted it. We're going to continue our work making existing system resources more granular. The next resource we're planning to focus on is admin secure, but we want to hear from you about that and about other resources that you would want to see us prioritize for granularity. Let's talk about OAuth 2, OpenID Connect, and birds. For the purposes of our analogy, we're going to say that having birds in a tree is a good thing. These aren't woodpeckers necessarily. They eat insects that might harm the tree, and they make things prettier. They're not part of the tree, but the tree can make itself a welcome environment for them. Similarly, OAuth 2/OpenID Connect is a framework that largely exists outside of InterSystems Iris, but which can be powerfully leveraged by it. We've been able to create OAuth 2 configurations within InterSystems Iris for a very long time, just like birds have been able to build nests in trees literally forever, basically forever. In InterSystems Iris 25.2, we introduced a new native authentication mechanism just for OAuth 2. This allows OAuth 2 resource servers configured within Iris, especially REST services, to authenticate directly to Iris without the need for custom authentication, and configurations that allow you to map OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect scopes and claims directly to roles within InterSystems Iris. So it's like the tree developed cavities within itself to make building that nest easier and more comfortable for the birds. Within the next year, we're planning to do work to support back channel logout for OpenID Connect. We've supported front channel logout for a while, but allowing back channel logout will make the process even more secure. Let's say that there's only one way in or out of that cavity in your tree. And if it gets blocked by a bobcat that's trying to eat your birds, then they can't get out. But if there's a back channel that allows for the birds to synchronize their exit and log out, that adds security. Now, in non-avian terms, back channel logout just means that the application within Iris can signal the OAuth 2 authorization server to log out all sessions for a user without needing to reach the browser session for each of those, which might be dormant or, in the case of some clients, non-existent. But it's more fun with bobcats. Again, be gentle with our analogy. We're not really putting holes in your tree or the instance. We just want the birds and OAuth 2 to be easier. Finally, a nod towards the future of communications. Now, scientists tell us that fungal networks connect trees and allow them to communicate with each other, sending warning signals or sharing nutrients. Of course, your systems communicate, but instead of fungus, you use TCP networks protected with TLS. In 25.2, we added support for elliptic curve DSA certificates and TLS configurations, allowing for better encryption performance for network connections. Iris leverages OpenSSL for its TLS capabilities, and that is starting to support some post-quantum cryptography algorithms. We're planning to leverage those in the future over the next few years, but we'd like your feedback on what you think you'll need from that and when you think you'll need it. Again, a reminder that all dates and versions mentioned here are projections and subject to change. To recap, there are improvements within the Iris security database, in the secure wallet, database encryption, and key management. as well as our granular resources and OAuth 2 and OpenID Connect, and planned TLS improvements. But most importantly, we want to better understand your priorities so that we know how to prioritize each of these items and which items we should add. So there's a URL here as well as a QR code if you are willing to trust QR codes that will take you to a survey that will ask things like, what are your priorities and business drivers around security? What needs do you have that weren't mentioned here? Of the needs mentioned here, which are most important and urgent for you? And we would definitely love to hear what security features you want out of InterSystems Iris. More generally, check out, sign up for the early access program for upcoming features generally. It's unclear which of the security features mentioned here will be posted, but you'll hear about them if you sign up. Please be sure to rate the sessions in the Ready app, and we hope you'll stay for our next session on cloud security and check out the prior sessions when the recordings come out. And I just want to thank you for sitting through this session and not leafing. Don't think that our bark is worse than our bite. We're not here to throw shade at you or try to stump you. And when you tell us our roots are showing, we'll take it as a compliment. Because good security practices are evergreen. Thank you.